A few items on the agenda, and we do have speaker cards and quite a few, and let's just go right down the list then. I do know that we will not have the director's status report today, so I want to thank her for being here in the past. Item number 10 will be continued for 2 weeks per the city attorney's office. 9 we'll call special. We do have a speaker card on 9, and we'll hear the speakers before going to closed session. And let's just march down the list, and we can move on this. So item number 1, we do have a speaker card on 1. Mr. Williams, Dr. Williams, but Roberto, can you tell us what 1 is about?
Sure, Councilman. It's a motion. Gruel Reyes is requesting Building and Safety to be the chair of a task force that will study the issue of the permit approval process and basically how to improve it and so that the city can generate more tax revenue.
Okay, Dr. Williams, would you like to come on up?
Name is Dr. Clyde Williams for 115 Barrett Road, El Sereno. Basically an expedited permit processing. However, I also noted that the least amount of departmental effort and generate maybe the most tax revenue, but shouldn't it be more of make sure there's due diligence so that we don't get faced with having a lot of public improvements required in order to support expedited projects. I'm concerned that somewhat like DWP will get rates changed, that the generated net gain for the entire city will not be reflected by a generated maximum revenue. I understand where revenue comes from. Quimby funds will be a good example. Lots of money, but no operation and maintenance, and that's where the problem is. We don't, I say with expedited process, due diligence goes out the door. Compliance often goes out the door because minimum effort is required. So I would see another Autry National Center lease agreement. Great agreement, except it's not enforced for 20 years. So I would also request that assure some form of public participation within the development of the process. DWP is having to redo their entire thing because they didn't include the public participation for their work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will be referring to the Department of Building and Safety as chair of the task force, but you have another card? Come on up. I didn't see another card here, but...
My apologies, I filled out a blank card. Just kidding. Jim D'Antona, Planning Deputy for Councilwoman Wendy Gruel. Just to clarify, this isn't a whole new process. This is to look at permits that don't have any discretionary actions tied to them, to see about the possibility of having an expedited process. And if we could get a verbal report back from Building and Safety on their thoughts along with planning, I think it would probably give us a good idea of whether this is something we can move forward.
Okay. So these are those projects and programs that don't have any kind of hooks or linkages or fees or impacts.
Yeah. A ministerial permit. One of what we had is we had a project in our district that was specifically a fire, burned it down, and it's taken a while to just kind of go through that process, where it probably could move a little faster if we kind of gave it something up front. So that's just kind of one of the considerations the Councilwoman was looking at when bringing this motion forward.
Okay. So we'll look forward to that report.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. So we'll request Building and Safety to prepare a report in 30 days with a plan to facilitate and expedite a permit approval process for construction jobs that will require the least amount of environmental efforts and will generate tax revenue for the city. Okay, so that'll be the action of this committee. Item number 2, Roberto.
Yes, Councilman, it's a motion, Gruel Reyes. It's requesting the city attorney, with the assistance of the planning department, to prepare a lot merger ordinance that complies with the State California Subdivision Map Act.
Okay, we have with us Dr. Clyde Williams. Come on up.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno. Lot mergers. All of Elephant Hill was basically a problem that reflects lot mergers. That is, many of the lots that are in the El Sereno area and other similar hillside areas cannot be built as they are now. They must be merged in order to get a decent, might say, floor area ratio so that they can be sold. They're much too small for general construction at this time, especially on hillsides. The hillside ordinance that was recently passed for the El Sereno and Lincoln Heights area does not really reflect that. Lot mergers is the key for the hillside developments. So if you do not have appropriate controls, you can have a lot of houses being built by merging 6, 7, 8, 9 lots and then redistributing them so that they can be built in a more practical manner. The hillside ordinance did not deal with that. The scale and character of the hillsides, I look at that mostly. The 4,000 square, on my street, a 4,000 square foot house is built. It needs 40 caissons in order to support it. Guess what? 4,000 square feet, whereas most of the houses in our area of El Sereno have maybe 1,000 square feet. Scale and character. Why are they 4,000? Because whoever's going to own them has to rent out at least 2 parts of it in order to make the payments, because nobody in El Sereno can afford $800,000 to $1 million worth of house without sharing it with others, usually at about $800 to $1,000 a month per family. Thank you.
Okay. So we're referring to the planning department in consultation with the city attorney. That'll be the action of this committee. Item number 3, Roberto.
Yes, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Commission. It's a zone change, and it's also a public benefit project, a 100% affordable housing project in CD 13.
Okay, now staff, give us a...
Yes, good afternoon. Henry Chi of the Planning Department. What we have here is the applicant's representative wanting to speak to present a project that's been reduced from what was approved at City Planning Commission. They fall within the conditions that we granted them for the approval. So we have the applicant's representative here to submit revised plans, which are still within the conditions granted, and basically are addressing the comments made by the local neighborhood council.
Have you had a chance to review these revised plans?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And they meet the conditions that we granted them.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to speaker cards. We have James Santamaria. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, council members. By way of background, this project was initiated as a community-based approach to development within the historic Filipino town neighborhood. Our partners as developers include Search to Involve Filipino American SIPA, as well as Little Tokyo Service Center. We've been in contact with the neighborhood council on numerous occasions and worked in conjunction with the council office as well as planning staff to provide a mixed-use, mixed-income project for the Temple Bonnie Bray area. What was approved in the CPC hearing was to allow a 9-story building for building A, an 8-story building for building B, and an 8-story building for building C. We since have been working with the neighborhood council to reduce that height to 8 stories for building A, 6 stories for building B, 6 stories for building C. We reflected that in the new plans that the architect had put together, In addition, we were approved by the CPC for 4-to-1 FAR ratio. We are going down to 3.7-to-1 FAR, so that I think both sides felt the need to look at this project in a way that would lower and make this project a lot better in the eyes of the community. We went through the neighborhood council full board, was approved for that, I believe, in December of 2008, and we're here today to make those modifications at this committee meeting. If you have any questions, take those.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kelly Bernard, Council Office.
Good afternoon, council members. Kelly Bernard, Director of Planning and Economic Development for Council President Eric Garcetti. We are here in support of the project. We've worked very closely with the developers. We did encourage them to work with the local neighborhood council. They had received the approval of the neighborhood council. They went forward to CPC. And then following that, there were still some kind of lingering questions in the community. We asked them to go back to neighborhood council just to be sure that the support was still firm. And in that discussion, it was offered to reduce the size of the development even further. And so, and the applicant was amenable to that, and we applaud their efforts to bring forth a project that has the support of the community. And it's, and we very much appreciate the fact that it is going to be mixed income, and they're working with SEPA and Little Tokyo. So we are here in support of the project, and we ask for your approval. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions, my colleague, on this? See no questions. We could move to approve subject to modifications per the District 13 office, the applicant, for reduced building height and FAR, and that will be the action of this committee. Okay. Next item, Roberto.
The next item, Councilman, is a Cultural Heritage Commission report relative to the inclusion of the K residence as a historic cultural monument.
Okay, we don't have any cards on this, so we can move this on consent.
Okay.
That'll be action of this committee. Next item.
The next item, Councilman, is item 5, again from the Cultural Heritage Commission. It's relative to the inclusion of the James F. Rio Studio Office as a historic cultural monument.
Also, we can move this on consent, seeing no cards on this item. Next item.
That would be item 6, Councilman. What's before you is a report from the West LA APC. It's a request for a transfer of jurisdiction filed by Danny Rajani, and it's relative to a specific plan exemption and a project permit compliance.
Okay. We do have a card on this one. Can the staff here on this item?
Good afternoon. I believe the card on file is from the applicant's representative, Henry Ramirez.
Okay.
So there's actually no items or no people here wishing to speak on the item, and I believe the council office also did not have an opinion on this matter.
Okay.
All right.
Somebody needs to say what the item is.
Okay, so Mr. Ramirez, you choose not to speak at this time? Okay. All right. Anything else to speak to as far as the project? Just give us a quick summary.
Sure. This project entails a specific plan exception in the Venice Community Plan. Specific plan. Staff recommends approval of the condition as requested with the exceptions. The request is for the continued use and maintenance of an additional dwelling unit to an existing duplex for a total of 3 units, providing 6 parking spaces on an approximately 3,082 square foot lot classified in the R3 zone and located in the Marina Peninsula subarea. The address is 20 East Quarterdeck Street.
So essentially, working the specific plan exception and the project permit compliance for the project at 20 East Quarterdeck Street.
Yes.
Okay. So we can move to grant the specific plan exception and the project permit. And that'll be the action of this committee.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, I just have one question. Did the original, the applicant, did they modify or did they build this structure in the first place? Is there?
As it stands, the current owner purchased the property with the unit already existing. It's undocumented as to when the unit was converted from the storage unit that it was before. We have a building permit that does not, the certificate of occupancy from 1989 only has 2 dwelling units, and sometime between 1989 and 1993, when the current owner purchased the property, the unit was converted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Roberto, we got the action for this committee?
Basically, adopt the recommendations of the planning department, Councilman.
Right, okay. If that gets the point across, that's what we'll do. All right. Next item, Roberto.
Item 7, it's a hardship exemption from the Country Club Park ICO, and it's for the demolition of a 7,870 two-story dormitory, and it's in CD 10.
Okay, we have no cards on this item. Can you just speak to, the staff here is here? We can just speak to the project, just summarize it very quickly?
Basically, Councilman, this is at the discretion of the council office. So if I believe the council office is in full support of the hardship exemption.
Okay, but just for the record, if we just have the staff give us the summary of what we're doing.
Sure, absolutely. Gabriela Juarez, Planning Department. The request is for the proposed demolition of a 7,800 square foot two-story dormitory and the construction of a new 3-story 39-foot high, 16,489 square foot building with a subterranean garage for the properties located at 1101, 1111, and 1117 South Arlington Avenue. The planning department does not have any jurisdiction as part of the hardship exemption, so we did guide the council office as they decided to have questions regarding their decision-making on this particular project.
Okay. So we'll move on consent. That'll be the action of this committee. Thank you. Next one, Roberto?
Those are closed session items, Councilman, 9 and 10, and I think you have a speaker's card on 9.
Well, we can do the speaker card, and then we'll ask for public comment right after that, and then we'll close to closed session. So we do have Crosby Doe. Madam Attorney?
Thank you. For the record, Sharon C. of Cardenas, I think we should start this item out in open session. If necessary, we could recess into closed session, but I have Mr. Shu from my office here who will explain to you what the item's about. Then we can take the public testimony, and it may be able to all be done in open session.
Okay, I'm fine with that. So
May I withhold my
just a minute,
testimony
sir.
till, if you're having an open session on this, may I withhold my testimony till after the
Madam Attorney?
comments?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Sigmund Shu, Deputy City Attorney. This is a matter on a lawsuit entitled Committee to Save the Hollywood Land Specific Plan versus the City of Los Angeles. The litigation history of this is kind of long, but in brief, the Court of Appeal found one aspect of the city approvals to be invalid, which is the Sql approval, and therefore ordered the Superior Court to issue a writ for the city to vacate the issuance of an exemption under Sql. You have the closed session report in front of you and the city attorney's recommendation. We would recommend that the planning committee recommend the action recommended in open session. And if you have any questions about the litigation, we can answer that in closed session, or if you have any general questions, I'm happy to try to answer them here in open session.
Okay, do you have any questions, Councilman? So this is referred to budget and finance?
It is also referred to budget and finance, yes.
Okay, so the action that you're recommending, can you clarify that?
Yeah, the action that's recommended to take in open session is to basically comply with the language of the writ, which is as follows. City Council hereby vacates the issuance of an exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA in parentheses, by the City Council on April 13, 2005, with respect to 3200 Duran Drive.
Okay. Is council office here? Would like to speak to this?
Not really. We understand the issue.
Okay. So let's ask Mr. Crosby Dole.
So I understand, if I understand this correctly, you're asking just to vacate. What I was here to request, this has been quite a complex and problematic issue for our neighborhood. And as the head of the committee to save the Hollywood Land specific plan, which is a very important preservation ordinance for our neighborhood as well, the critical thing here, I think, is to urge that the city now take a position of doing an environmental impact report so that all of the aspects of alternatives for both safety and aesthetics can be examined and clearly expressed to the city. I believe that really has never been done, and a full environmental impact report will bring all of the options to the fore. We're anxious to work and have had discussions prior to this with the opposing attorneys for Cutler, saying that we want to work together to find a solution that really is to the benefit of the neighbors in a win-win situation. But in order to do that, I feel that all of the options should be fully explored through a full environmental impact report. And this is what will really move the process along in a proper manner. Thank you very much.
Okay, any comment from our city attorney?
With regard to the future steps, that's obviously not the item in front of us, but with regard to after the city council, if it does take the recommendation, vacates the CEQA approval, then the Department of City Planning will determine what the next steps would be in terms of the Sql clearance.
Okay, so we'll just take it one step at a time.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll follow your recommendation as an action of this committee, and then we'll proceed from there.
Okay.
Did you have anything to say, Matt? Please give us your name for the record.
Renee Weitzer for Councilman Tom LaBonge. It sounds so complicated, and I feel like, maybe not everybody's understanding it, but basically what the court has said is the CEQA that was done for this particular fence was not sufficient, and the city has to redo the CEQA. So before the resident who lives here, the applicant that wants to redo the fence, can redo the fence, there has to be a new environmental done. Is that correct? That's...
Yes.
Crosby? That's the situation. I just wanted to sort of clarify it.
Madam Attorney?
I don't know if that did or didn't.
Yes, that's correct. Before the new fence can go up, with the city will need to redo the CEQA and have a new CEQA clearance.
And that's the recommendation of this committee?
Well, the recommendation of this committee is to vacate the prior CEQA approval, which the court found invalid. And then once the new CEQA is done, the council would have to go back to council for reapproval.
Okay. So we'll go through our official actions to get to that point.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that will be the action of this committee following the recommendation of the city attorney.
Okay.
Okay? That's an aye vote? That'll be action of this committee. Okay.
We have a public comment card.
A public comment card. Dr. Williams?
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno. 710 is coming under a community near you. We've been involved with 710 for the last several months, and one of the elements was that Mr. Garcetti and Mr. Reyes's districts are not represented within the steering committee for this very important project, although many borings are being done in those districts. The Public Works representative has not attended the last two technical advisory committee meetings. Therefore, there's been no real representation by the departments of the city. We're quite concerned, especially when the Alhambra mayor and one council member opens the project with Caltrans senior staff, including the district manager, in El Sereno, although they renumbered the gate to get to the site as being in Alhambra. So in fact, they came over into El Sereno and opened the project of doing the geotechnical survey. Uncirculated reports from Caltrans also indicates that their preferred conceptual route was to begin in the lot north of Valley and continue as an open cut and cover to Huntington Drive, thereby destroying all of the houses in between. We're quite concerned about that. We have looked at the SR 710 information right now and see some problems in Glassell Park, Eagle Rock, and other locations. Basically, our approach is let those who benefit from this project suffer the impacts and the consequences of fire in tunnels. That is, give it over to Alhambra. It can be built entirely in Alhambra, South Pasadena, and Pasadena. Thank you.
Seeing no one else, I'll close public comment. This meeting is adjourned.